Hi, I'm Rick Roller, and welcome tonight to our exciting exam review. And what we're going to be doing tonight is math. And I hate to even call it math because really it's just arithmetic. Okay, it is division, addition, multiplication, and that other thing, subtraction. That's all it is. And so if I say math, you say, "Oh my gosh, I've got to get one of those really fancy calculators, and I've got to get, you know what? One of these works just fine. I mean, they even flip up. Look how cool that is, right? I mean, come on. So, just take a simple little calculator. And you know what? They're probably not even going to let you use it anyway. They'll probably give you one of theirs because they're afraid, you'll open the battery case in the back and have a crib sheet or something that I don't know, but it's just a simple little calculator and it's just arithmetic. Okay. So we've got 10 questions we're going to go through tonight. And these are very similar to what the type of problems that you have to be able to use. Okay, so tonight it's fun with arithmetic. Okay, so let's start off with our very first question. Math review number one. All right, here we go. We're going to show it on the screen. Okay, all right. All right, a builder creates a subdivision from a parcel of land that's 20 acres. And he gives 10% of the property back to the city for streets and parks. And what square footage of streets and parks will there be on the 20 acres on the whole property? Okay, well, looking these answers over, 20% would be 2 acres, right? So what's wrong with answer C? It's way too small. What's wrong with answer D? That's just 1 acre. So eliminate those two because we know that 10% is 20 acres. That's 2 acres. So it's either got to be A or it's got to be B. Now, B is one heck of a lot of square feet. Okay. So 20%, 10% of the property. What is the square footage of the streets? Guys, it's going to be, let's figure it out. Okay. How many square feet an acre? 43,560. But there's 20 acres, right? So the total square footage would be 20 times 43,560. But we're going to donate some of it, right? We're going to donate 10%. And that's all we really need to look at is the 10%. So what's 10% of 87,120? That's the whole thing. It's 87,120, right? Well, it was 871,200. So it'd be 87 120, and that's the total for the streets and parks. So that would just be answer A. So you don't make these any harder. Okay, so you go back to it. Answer A is the correct answer. Answer B is way too big, and C and D are too small. Okay, so you can eliminate those. I mean, even if you had a 50-50 chance on this, you're going to be okay, as long as you don't mess up your math too much. But going back on this is 20 acres, 10% is 2 acres. And what square footage of the streets and parks will that be or what is the square footage? And that's 87,120 square feet. Okay. That's the first one. Would you back up one slide, Dan, please? Okay. So looking this over again, we have 20 acres, the total square footage in an acre. You should know this. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, add a zero and invert the first two. It's 43,560. Some people like to remember that by 7-Eleven. 4 and 3 is 7, and 5 and 6 is 11. 7-Eleven, okay? Your favorite soft drink store. But, you've still got to remember how that all pans out. So I like 3, 4, 5, 6, add a zero and invert the first two. That's how I like to remember it. But after a while, you just know an acre is 43,560. So total square footage times 20, big number, 871,200, 10% of that is a donated portion, or 87,120. Okay. Don't let these whip you. I mean, just take it one step at a time. Most all the math problems you ever encounter will be a two-stepper. There won't be a one-step math problem. It's just too easy. So a two-stepper means you usually have to convert something to do something else. Like this, we had to convert the 20 acres into the total square footage. And then we had to figure out how much of that was designated for total streets and parks. Okay, so it's a two-stepper. Just count on it. Count on it. Let's look at the next one, please. Number 2.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of them. And if you want even more review material, we have in the Prep My Exam link in the comments, we've got a plethora of practice exams, we have audiobooks, we have an exam simulator, we have everything that our students use to pass the exam on their first try. Okay? And if you want to get licensed in Utah, check out realestateonlinelearning.com and we'll hook you up.
Now we're talking about how many acres are there in the south half of the northwest quarter of section 3. Well, okay, when you're doing these, guys, just don't make them any harder than they have to be. I mean, does section 3, section 5, section 20, does that really make any difference? No, they're all the same. And every section has how many or how many acres in it? 640. Okay. So if it's the south half of the northwest quarter of section 3, they're not asking you to locate it. You know, there is no opportunity on the exam to have a digital image. So they're not going to have like a section with a little block that's blocked up, you know, it's highlighted and it says, describe this. You know, you're not going to do that, you know. So really it's half of a quarter. So if the whole thing is 640, right? This is the whole thing, 640. And you could draw it out like this if you wanted to, but they're not asking you to locate it, you know. So, but anyway, so we take the northwest quarter and then half of that. So, you know, we're going to take, you know, it's, you know, half of the 640 is 320. And then we take that and divide that by a quarter. And that's 80 acres. And that's answer C. Okay. Any way you want to get there is fine with me, you know. But another way of looking at this, if you know the whole section is 640, and we're dividing it by half, and then we're dividing it by a quarter, this is the way to do it. I mean, take 640, divide it by half, then divide it by a quarter. And you come up with 80. Real quick, real simple. And you don't have to draw it out like I've illustrated here, but I just wanted you to kind of see it. And you know, and it doesn't matter if it was a quarter of a half or a half of a quarter, you're going to come out with the same thing. Okay. Math works either way. Let's look at the next one, please. Number 3. Okay, the commission split is 70-30. Okay, that's a pretty common split in Utah. A lot of them are better, some of them are worse. But you know, 70-30 is pretty easy to get. And the brokerage charges sellers 6%. The agent took home $8,500 with their 70% split last month for just one sale. Okay, which is cool. I mean, you know, if you had 2 sales, that would have been a much better month. But even one sale, you know, is a pretty decent wage in Utah, you know, but you got to be consistent. You got to do it a lot. Okay, so 8,500 with their split of 70%. So last month was one sale. What was the selling price? So the first thing you got to look for is, let's look at all the numbers we need. Well, we know we're on a 70-30. We know what charges, you know, the brokerage is 6%, and your share was 70% of that, which was $8,500. All right. So what we have to do here is just let's run it out. First of all, the commission was 6%, which was $8,500. The brokerage split was 70. So the total commission, you divide your portion of the commission, 70%, into what you received, and that's going to give you the whole commission. Now, if you're uncomfortable with that, you really want to check it, you know, you could check it. You could take the 12,143 times 70%, you're going to come up with the 85. But once you've done a few of these, you'll become more confident with dividing the number, 8,500, or your commission, by the percentage. You're going to come up with the total commission. And the rate was 6%, right? They gave us that in the problem. So if we do the same thing, only a little different, only this time we're going by the whole commission and the whole commission rate, not just your split. So that's 6% divided into the 12,143. The sales price is 102,381. Kind of an unusual sales price, but hey, I guess the guy was a very meticulous negotiator. Now you could check this by going backwards. You could take the 202,381, multiply it by 6, that'll give you 12,143. Divide that or multiply that by 70%, your share, 85, and that you could check your answer that way too if you wanted to, but as long as you don't hit the wrong numbers on your calculator, you're going to be just fine. Okay. Okay, we have the answers available, all these questions also. So, I mean, if all you have in front of you are just the questions, we'll get the answers to you as well. Just request them from the office. We'll send them right out if you don't already have them. All right, let's look at number 3 now. Number 3 says a commission split is 70-30. And okay, we already did this one. All right, so what we need, what was the selling price again? 202,381. Okay, we got that. So we're on number 4 now. You're the listing agent on transaction just closed. Cool, I love that. Your listing sold for 284.3, and you offered the selling agent a 3% commission. So your listing commission is, your total listing commission was 6%. Not unusual, take in 6, split it 50-50. A very common. Sometimes you take in 7 and then still pay them only 3. But how much commission stays with your brokerage? Okay, well, let me see. Is it A, B, C, or D, guys? Well, here's what we need to figure the problem. We need the total sales price, of course, and we need to know that it's 3% commission. Well, if you're going to pay 3% to the other company, that means you're going to keep the other half. You're going to keep 3 of the 6. So the seller commission, 6%. The buyer commissions -3, remaining commissions 3%, and then your commission rate, 3% of the 284.3 is going to give you your commission of, survey says, 85.29. And then of course you're going to split that with your broker. But then again, you don't find a lot of properties for $284,000 anymore. I mean, you might find some lots for that, or maybe a small condo. All right, so how much commission stays with your brokerage, which is the total 3%. That's yours and the broker's commission. So really, kind of a simple problem. Just kind of work it backwards, or you can work it frontwards. You could take the, but very simple. Take the 284.3 and multiply it by 6. Cut it in half, 85.29. Okay. You can do this. Don't let math fool you. I mean, if you're good at math, you wish there was more math, but really you're only going to see about 8 or 9 questions on the state exam in math. Unless you're taking the broker's test, then there'll be a few more, but not that many more, and not that complicated either. Just have to do a couple proration problems in addition to the other ones. They're simple. Number 5, please. Okay. Your calculations have provided that the effective gross income is $51,000. Operating expenses are $21,000. And the appropriate cap rate is 10%. So what's the value of this property? Well, cap rates, what we're solving for is value. And cap rates, we derive that by using a cap rate. Cap rates are always annual. If I could click that, come on. Annual. If you forget, just go like that during a test. Someone across the room will go, annual, then you'll know they were in my class. But cap rates are always are annual, okay? But they've already given us annual figures, so that's not the trick here, okay? But it may be in the future. It may give you some monthly things, and you got to figure that out. All right, so whatever, the gross income, and cap rates are always figured on net income also, net income. So our gross income is 51, but our expenses were 21. So our NOI, net operating income, was $30,000. Total income 51 minus 21 gives us a net operating income of 30, and our cap rate is 0.10, 10%. See the little percentage sign? That means you have to start over on the right-hand side and go 1, 2 places over. So If it was 110%, it'd be, you'd still go over only 2 places. But, you divide the 30,000 NOI by the 10% cap rate, and that gives you a $300,000 property value. You will see cap rate problems. You must be able to do these. Generally, what they'll try to do is exactly what we've shown you here. They'll give you a gross income, and you need to make it net. You need to know that cap rates are not based on gross income. They're based on net operating income. Sometimes they'll give you the expenses figure, not as a, operating expense of 21 like they did here. They'll give you that figure as a percentage. The expenses are 30%. The expenses are 15% or whatever it might be. So you have to work it that way. And then, of course, you have to convert a 10% cap rate into a decimal equivalent, which is 0.10. Make a simple division, but don't divide it into the gross. That won't help you. You can divide it into the NOI, the net operating income. Cap rates are always based on NOI, net operating income. It's not a trick if you know it. You need to know it. You will see one of these, okay? Number 5, your calculations have provided. We're on number 6. All right. The loan on the property was for 85% of its appraised value, okay? The interest rate was 9%. The interest in the first payment was $1,205. What was the appraised value of the property? Now, the only way you can do this, we got to solve for the appraised value, okay? So these numbers become real important to us, but the only way that you can do this is because it is the first payment. See, because that means that the 85% is true. That would be the starting point of the loan because this is the first payment. Okay, so let's do some calculation here, right? Monthly interest rate, we need annual. Okay, so we're going to multiply that by 12. So the annual interest will be 14,460 divided by the rate, which they gave us in the problem, right? And what was that? Well, we'd have to look at the problem to see, because I don't remember. What was it, Dan? 9%. Once again, we convert that to the decimal equivalent, and we divide that into the interest. Now, we are not dividing in the monthly interest, we're dividing in the annual amount of interest. And because it was the first payment, that's how we can get away with this. If it had been the third payment or the fourth payment, it would have been a much more complex problem, and we wouldn't be able to do it with just an ordinary cheapo calculator. We need something a little more fancier, and they're something with the Elwood tables in it, and they don't require that for the test. So what we got here is we know our loan amount because we knew the interest rate of 9% and we knew the annual interest was 14,460. So our loan amount was 160,667. And we divide that by our loan to value ratio, which was given to us in the problem, 85%. So now we can come up with the appraised value because the loan amount was based on the appraised value. Okay. Not the sales price. I mean, normally they have a down payment. I guess it could have been a VA loan, 100% loan or something, but that wasn't this particular problem. So that's how we figure it, guys. We come up with the monthly interest, but they gave you an annual interest rate. So we've got to annualize that monthly interest of 14,460. And luckily it was the first payment, or it would have been a much more difficult problem and they wouldn't have given it to you. So we take that 14,460 divided by the annual, because now we have an annual interest, and we divide that by the 9%. We come up with the loan amount of 160, knowing that our loan amount was 85% of the appraised value. So that gave us a 189.20. A little bit of math, but it's just a multiplication, divide. Real simple. And if you set it up like Dan had it here, where you just kind of work it down, it's much simpler. Number 6 says the loan on a property was for 85. Oh, we just did that. Number 7. All right. Okay. Yeah. Give me a break. A seller wants to net 80 grand. Okay, that'd be cool. The mortgage origination fee is 1%. Appraisal is $400. Discount points for the buyer is 0.5 on a VA loan of 100% of the purchase price. Okay, the title insurance is $300. Your brokerage fee is 6%. What do you have to list the property for to meet the seller's goals? Now, the trick on this question is that some of these expenses that they've itemized here in the question are not, they're not buyer cost. Okay. The seller, or they are buyer cost. They're not seller cost. Okay. And so the seller wants to net $80,000. The mortgage origination fee is a buyer cost. The appraisal is a buyer cost. The discount points could be either buyer or seller, but they didn't tell us that it was paid by the seller, so we assume it's not. And then his loan amount is really irrelevant. Title insurance is $300, and that's the seller's cost, and the brokerage fee is 6%. Okay, so the trick here was separating the buyer's expenses from the seller's expense. Commission is a seller's expense, and so is the title insurance. But these other things involving the loan and whatnot, that's a buyer's cost. Okay, so what we do now is, we got to do some math. So let's take a look. We knew the title insurance, $300. So 80,300, and the commission, all of it is 100%, but it's going to be 6%. So the seller's net is going to be 94,000. Okay, and so that gives us 80,300, and we can divide that by 0.94, which is the seller's net. And we got to list this for 85.4. I'd list it for 85.9. Give yourself a little negotiating room. But if you're going to be that specific on this question, be 85,465 or 426. Okay. Now, once again, don't freak on these. Just work them backwards and take them a step at a time. They want a net, all right, but we got to add into the net expenses, and we know because they gave it to us, $300. So it's got to be 80,300 we have to net, and then we have to add on top of that the commission. Well, and so this 80,300 represents 94%. I mean, if your commission is 6%, that's all of it. From 100%, that gives you 94%. Well, the 80,300 would be what's left over after the commission. So if we divide that by the percentage it represents of the whole, it gives us what we call a reciprocal, and that would be 85,460 or 26. And if this is a very persnickety seller who will not take any less than $80,000 net, that would be 80,000 plus the 300 on expenses. Then, folks, what you got to do is, you got to add it in like this. So 85,426. I would add another $500 or something, maybe 85.9, just because most buyers will come in with a negotiated offer, and if he's real persnickety about making 80 grand, you're going to have to work the numbers for him and show him what the net is. Okay. Now, I know this is very simplistic, and there's going to be other costs involved in a transaction. And so I would suggest to you guys that you pick a favorite title company right away, go and visit with them and ask them to do some mock settlement sheets for you. And if you're going to be selling in the $500,000 price range, do some 450, a 425, a 475, a 500, 525, 550, 600, give a range and do mock settlement sheets for that, which would be, the customary expenses that you would have on a closing, and then put them in plastic sheets, that you could put in a 3-ring binder, and then have that binder with you so you can kind of flip through and get an estimate of what the closing costs would be, because you're not going to. Now, they run around 2%, and you could take what they want to net and add 2% to that, and that's one way to do it. But a lot of sellers are a little bit more persnickety than that, And so it'd be helpful to have the actual mock settlement sheets that are close. Now, you don't have to have them really close, because you'll see once you get, 450, 475, a 525, a 550, whatever, a few of them in your binder, that, the expenses don't go up that much. They go up a little bit, but not that high. So pick one on the high side so they'll actually net more, you know. So, well, you should come up with at least this, and then when they make a little more, like he wouldn't complain if he got 80,300, if he wanted 80,000, so, right, or 80,600, that would be cool. And then when the offers come in, you can sit down and run the nets for them if you want to. But a lot of sellers are a lot more persnickety than just saying, well, closing costs run around 2%. I charge 6%. So that's 8%. So you're going to make 92% of this. It's close, but not exact, not for some sellers. So getting those settlement sheets with the exact figures on them from, recording cost and title insurance and the whole 9 yards might be helpful to some of you. I wouldn't show them to all your sellers, because most sellers don't. They just want an estimate of what they're going to come away with. But every once in a while, you run across one of those accountants or engineers, and they want to see all the figures. So that might be something I would do. Go to a title company and have them run some mock settlement sheets for you with the typical cost. Okay. Next question, please. Okay. Now here's a property that was purchased 4 years ago. Cool. For 2.325, nice sale, 2.325 million. That's a good one. Okay. If it depreciated 3.5% per year and land cost was $1 million, what is a property worth now? Now, when you're talking about depreciation, land doesn't depreciate. It doesn't depreciate for tax purposes, and it doesn't really depreciate that much in real life either. It usually goes up. But when we're looking at depreciation, there's two ways to look at it. You're looking at it from the real world perspective, and you're also looking at it from a tax perspective, which is fuzzy tax loophole thinking on depreciation side. It's just an advantage to a buyer, to buy investment properties that they give you a little bit of discount on your income tax, which is a great thing. So anyway, we're looking at this. What is a property worth now? All right. So this property didn't go up. It actually went down. So we got to do a little math here. Okay. Now they bought it 4 years ago for 2.325, $2.32 million. Okay. So let's start with that. If it's going to depreciate, it's going to depreciate at 3.5% a year. There's two ways we can figure it. We can go forward or backward. Which way did you do it, Dan? Show us the first figure. Okay, so what we started with the property value was 2.325, but we got to take the land off because that doesn't depreciate. All right, so the structure value would be 1,325. Right? If you take $1 million off that, it's $1,325,000. Now the depreciation rate they gave us in the problem was 3.5%. So the annual depreciation would be 46,375. And I don't know what this, where we have to assume that this is straight depreciation. They didn't tell us it was accelerated or anything else. They tried to keep the problem fair and simple. So we're just going to multiply that by 4 years because they said it was 4 years. All right. So 46,375 times 4 gives us a total depreciation of, survey says, 185.5. All right. So what's the property value now? Well, total, even with the land, was 2.325 minus the 185, and that gave us 21395. Okay, unusual, but occasionally you get into a falling market and properties actually have depreciated. We are entering into, as we do this math review, in about the fourth, fifth month or so well, it's the fourth month still. So in 2024, our market is actually depreciating a little bit, like this, maybe 3.5%, particularly in income properties because vacancy rates are going up a little bit and rents are actually coming down to become a little bit more competitive. Well, now we'll see how far down that goes. Utah's a little unusual in that the worse things get around the country, economic wise, the economies of different states and crime wise and whatever else, the more people flock home to Utah. So we're a little bit immune to what's happening around the country in a lot of ways. You'll find that our prices remain fairly stable, even though other prices around the country may be going down. But 3.5% is not, a huge number, particularly if you're looking at income properties right now, because of vacancy rates and whatnot. So anyway, the total depreciation over this 4-year period of time would be $2,139,500. Okay. Okay. A property was purchased for assume a seller at closing must pay transfer taxes at the rate of $1 for every 500 bucks. Now, a transfer tax is a small tax. I mean, it's only $1 per 500. And the purpose of it is not to raise more revenue. It's really to help the county assessor because they'll stamp it right on the deed. And so what'll happen is they'll know that the transfer tax was one of these 4 numbers here, but they'll know based on the formula for their county or for their state, they know what the formula is. And so most deeds say $10 another good and valuable consideration. $10 another valuable consideration. So it doesn't really help an appraiser to know what things are going for. And like I said, most sellers type up the deed, or the title company types up the deed and says $10 and other good and valuable consideration. So if it didn't have that transfer tax stamped on the deed, the assessor would have a hell of a time trying to figure out what the prices were, because it's not going to be typed out in the deed. All right, so the sales price, $345,600. How much tax must the seller pay? Well, how many $500 are going to be in there? And for any amount over a $500 figure, they're going to charge $1 for that too. So let's take 100 off the top of this. It's because the sales price was, put it up there, Dan, $345,600. And how many $500 are there in there? You could divide that by the 500. Okay. So we're going to write it, so we're going to round it off as 692. Okay. $1 per 500. But we're going to round it up. Okay. Questions, comments? You can chime in if you have a question or comment, because Dan will get those and forward them to me, or maybe I'll even hear it. Let's look at the next question, please. Assume a transaction on a 4-plex, it's 4 units, closes on March 2nd. Cool. Beginning of the month. Nice to have closings at the first of the month too. The 4-plex has been rented at a rate of $3,100 per month. Rent of the month of March was paid to the seller on March 1st. So closing on March 2nd. So the sellers collected the rent for the whole month, but he didn't own it for the whole month. He only owned it for 2 days, okay, of that month. So the seller owns the apartments through the date of closing, so he owns it for the 2 days. What is the buyer's prorated share of the rent? Use a 365-day proration method and round your answer to the nearest whole number. Okay. Well, what's important here is March 2nd. The seller gets 2 days worth of rent. Okay. So let's look at some numbers here, Daniel. Monthly rent, $3,100. Days in a month, 31. Daily rent rate, the per diem, $100. Easy math. Okay, times the buyer days, 29. Why 29? Because the seller got the first 2 days. All right, so buyer's prorated share, $2,900. Don't freak. Now, there's another way of doing this. I mean, you could have calculated it by what the seller got and then divide it, out. But this is the best way to do it because you don't get confused. So what you have to determine is how many days does the seller actually have to give up to the buyer? I mean, the buyer bought it, but the seller got the rent through the second. So 2 from 31, 29 days. They've already been paid. They gotta prorate that back. That'll be handled on the closing. Okay. Now, in addition to the rent, make sure that the seller also transfers the security deposits, because because when your current tenants move out, they want their security deposits back too, assuming they didn't tear the place up. They left it in good shape. So you're going to want those from the seller as well. And the title companies are pretty accurate, but someone has to tell the title company it's a rental, and they're going to have to tell them what the rents are, and they're going to have to tell them what the deposits were that the buyer gave to the seller, so they can take them from the seller and give it to the buyer. So I've been to closings where the title company doesn't know if it's rented or not. Now, this one was a little different because it was a multi-unit thing, but someone's got to tell them. Otherwise they won't know if they have to do a proration of rent, and then they're going to want to they're going to want the rent figures and the deposit figures. Let's look at the next question, please. What are we on? Did we do them all?
I think we did them all.
Okay. Janie, do you have a question? No? Okay. Well, those 10 went by pretty quick. Look, like I said, 8, maybe 9 math problems. But please don't underestimate the value of doing the math, because math is one thing for dang sure you can get right. You just have to know the formulas, and you have to practice a little bit. And we do have this math review tonight, and we have other math reviews and whole math sections where we go through each individual type of problem you're going to see in excruciating detail. So you should be comfortable with math, because those are 8 or 9 questions, and you don't want to miss any of the math problems because there is a definitive answer there, and once you know the tricks, you should be able to get it. So if you're a math phobic, get over it. If you need some math help, you're welcome to call the school. We have extra math problems that you can actually work, and you can actually call me as well. We can work some math together in a number of different ways. Okay, so it's 801-556-8000 is my cell phone number. You're welcome to call and be happy to help. Except during the exam itself, do not call me then. The eyes get big. I say, "Are you in the exam?" They take your phone away. Okay, so you're not going to be able to do that anyway. So best of luck to you out there. This is a great time to get into real estate. I know that a lot of things are happening in the business. We've got the buyer's commission thing that people are a little bit concerned about. We'll work around that. It's not a big deal. I mean, we've got all kinds of things. There's nothing constant in our business except it changes a little bit. That's okay. I've been in this business over 45 years. And yeah, there have been a lot of changes, sure. You just roll with them. It gets a little more interesting, perhaps. We have to do more disclosures than we ever had to do before, and a few things. It's not that difficult. You can do this. People still need the help. They don't know how to sell their houses. They need the help. They need your professional opinions on value. They don't know how to advertise. They don't know what to do to get the house ready to sell. I mean, there's a lot of value that you provide people, and you're well paid for it as well. Okay, so it's a great time to get into business. And Utah is the influx of people into our state is still at a good pace, and we're actually a little short on inventory. Prices are holding. Yeah, prices on commercial and particularly office space might take a little bit of a dip, maybe 2, 3, 4%. Probably not any more than that. But it's a great time to get into business. I compliment you for being in school. Let's just get you through this test and get you out there making money. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave you with one idea. A lot of folks have said, well, what is the key to success? Where do I find it? The truth is, the key to success is found in you. It's on your person, it's in you. Okay. This is a very great business to get into. You're going to have to learn how to be self-disciplined. You got to get up every morning and go to work. You've got to learn the business. There's a lot to learn. Even after you get your license, there's still lots of things you got to learn, but it's okay. You can earn as you learn, you know, and it's a great business to get into, and you're going to enjoy it, and you can do it. You can do it. Thanks for being with us tonight. Please feel free to call the school for additional math problems, or I gave you my phone number. You're welcome to call that as well. And thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you want to show some appreciation to our instructors, be sure to like and subscribe so that they see how much you enjoyed it. And if you want any additional review material, check the links below for our full suite of practice materials for the real estate license exam. Thank you.